Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee. Thursday night, the 7th of March, 2019, 7:30 Eastern Time, as we get closer and closer to a weekend and closer to getting rid of this ridiculously cold air mass that's sitting overhead. We had another day of temperatures having a really tough time just getting to the freezing mark, and some spots around where I am didn't get out of the 20s today, but it's a step forward every day, and we are going to see temperatures continue to inch up as we go through the weekend. And by the time we get to next week, we get to Monday and beyond, we're going to have a couple of days where at least we have some seasonal temperatures. A lot going on going into this weekend. We have two storm systems, a weaker one that is going to be moving through the mid-Atlantic states on Friday. Not a whole lot with it. Outside chance somebody gets a coating to an inch or so out of that. That would be the absolute maximum. And then we have a second stronger storm that is going to impact parts of the plains and Midwest with heavy snow and possibly some blizzard conditions in a few places. And we also have what I think is going to be another potential severe weather outbreak across the South in about the same areas that got it last weekend. So here's the watches and warnings map tonight with an expanding area of winter storm watches up through the northern plains on back up into parts of Montana and Wyoming, and on the eastern flank across into Minnesota and western Wisconsin. Winter weather advisories extend back into parts of northern Utah, northeastern Nevada, southeastern Idaho. We also have some watches up in parts of the state of Wyoming. In the east, the lead weather system, or further east, I should say, as you move into the Ohio Valley and toward the central Appalachians, you've got this kind of narrow area of winter weather advisories from southeastern Iowa, northeastern Missouri, across central Illinois, snaking through central and southern Indiana, northeastern Kentucky, southeastern Ohio, little area in West Virginia, into an area in western Virginia and westernmost North Carolina. Again, this is not looking like any big deal as far as snow is concerned. We had some lake effect action going on off Lake Ontario near Syracuse and on north on I-81 toward Pulaski with some hefty snows up there. But that is finally beginning to wind down as the action has been fierce over the last couple of days, but finally starting to see things have changed a bit as far as the impact of the lake effect is concerned. Now, we always like to, as we do every night, we like to go to the Weather Prediction Center's, WPC's, rainfall 7-day forecast, because it does really give you a good view of how things are going to behave in the next week. And much of the action is going to be centered on the thunderstorm activity throughout the lower Mississippi Valley into the Tennessee Valley. This really lines up very well, by the way, with the risk area, which I'll show you in a second. But we're talking rainfall amounts in excess of 5 to 7 inches in some areas in northern Alabama and in eastern Tennessee, and a large swath from all the way up into southern Minnesota, all the way down into the Louisiana Gulf Coast, where we're talking about 2 inches plus precip amounts. Now, the area up into northern Minnesota, this first storm for this weekend, that's an all-snow event. Then there's one for later next week, so that's at the latter part of the forecast period. That actually could be so far to the west that it'll be mostly rain through Minnesota this time around, even up to International Falls. And that's pretty unusual considering how cold it's been up there in the Great Plains. But starting to get to that time of year where you're beginning to see some changes, and the whole trough is going to be pretty far to the west, and we're going to have a very, very strong ridge in the eastern part of the United States. Now let's address the severe weather risk, because I think that's in lieu of what happened last week across the South with the deadly tornadoes in Colorado, in Alabama. Excuse me. The Storm Prediction Center, whenever whenever you see this, when they go when you go on the SPC website, which is spc.noaa.gov, when you go on the SPC website and you start seeing severe weather risks out through in days 4 through 8, the first 3 days, when you do see it more often than not. But when you start to see risk areas going out in their forecast from day 4 through 8, it's always a sign that they think it's serious, and to pay attention. And indeed, now that the forecast that we saw from them 2 days ago, which was in the day 5 time frame, is now in the day 3 time frame. And this is what it's evolved to, as far as a very large area of slight risk of severe throughout Arkansas, the northern half of Louisiana, virtually all of Mississippi, most of Alabama, and at least the western half of Tennessee, southern Missouri, a piece of southwestern Kentucky, southern Illinois, and that slight risk, and a marginal risk of severe weather extends out from there up into northern Missouri, and you can see it goes as far east as in northwestern Georgia. So this looks like a pretty important event to keep an eye on for Saturday, and it also extends into Sunday. Now, Sunday is now their new day 4, so we've got a 15% chance of severe weather being indicated along the Carolinas down into the Florida Panhandle, and then west to the Louisiana Gulf Coast. So this could turn into a slight risk of severe weather when we take a look at this tomorrow at this time. At this point, the next weather system will have shifted into the eastern part of the U.S. The surface map tonight kind of shows you at least that there's some hope for things to start to moderate here in the east. The cold high that came down from Canada and through the plains and Midwest is now moving out. We do have a second high that is, you see it there, centered over on the Ohio-Indiana border and on up to northern Wisconsin. So that high, and we mentioned this on our Patreon live stream a little while ago, this has come down from southwestern Canada. So it's not quite as cold as the one that we just experienced. So this chilly air, albeit modified, is going to take over for the next couple of days. So that actually is going to allow temperatures to rise a bit as we head into the weekend. And in the meantime, you can see the complex nature of what's going on out in the west, with energy that's coming eastward now, and then the stronger energy that is back through the Rockies and on up into the northwest. Now that's all going to come eastward, and it's going to create this next storm system that is heading up into the northern plains and into the upper Midwest, where if we look at temperatures, let's pull up the latest surface map here, because now we're at, wow, already have the 0Z map up? Boy, that's quick. I'm shocked. Well, here's the wait, that's no wonder. I hit the wrong button. Hang on a second. No, 0Z Friday, but this was last night's map. Let's go to the previous one, see if they give the 21Z should be there. Okay, I guess they're having some issues over there. All right, so here's the latest surface map. Weakening front here in the east. You got the new high over Wisconsin and into Michigan, extending back up into the northern plains. And here's that, again, that complex nature of the system. Hold on, you got to come in, Mac. Oh, Anthony, yeah, did you need the IFB? Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry. Do what you got to do. You can see the complex nature, again, of the system that is out to the west. The eastern satellite I thought was pretty interesting. I showed this up a little earlier. If you look closely, you can actually see the snow cover across southern Pennsylvania and the clouds that are rolling over it. That's the brighter white that's not moving. And that snow cover, of course, extends all the way up into southern and southeastern New England. It will gradually disappear, but this cold air has been so cold that we haven't been able to get rid of most of it. This time of year, the March sun can do its job, but it's having a tough time when it's got to fight and Arctic air mass. Latest radar showing a leading edge of this first weak system that's coming eastward, producing a little bit of snow through parts of Illinois, southern Indiana, into northeastern Kentucky and southwestern parts of West Virginia. The action out in the west has calmed down quite a bit as there's a little bit of a break in the action there before you start to get into the next weather system and the next round with that trough that's going to hang out in the west for a while. There's still more to go as far as activity is in the western part of the U.S. So let's jump to the GFS tonight and take a look at where we're going in the short term. And I'm going to touch on a few things in the long-range forecast here. But here's our high, cold high pulling out on Friday, and now we've got this weak low going by just to our south. It really isn't going to do very much. Areas in south central Pennsylvania, down into Maryland, northern Virginia, you might pick up a coating to an inch or so, and that moves away. Now we've got the main energy coming out, and in the meantime, I think the weather, at least for the start of the weekend, for my neck of the woods, looks pretty decent. It'll be chilly, but it won't be as cold as what we've experienced. I think we'll be able to take temperatures back into the 40s. Here's the next low, runs up to the Great Lakes. The snows for the Dakotas, northern Nebraska, much of Minnesota, northwestern Iowa, and northwestern Wisconsin, southeastern Wisconsin in rain. And in the east, now it's possible that at the start Saturday night, for a short period of time, you could see some mixed precip at the start. But I got to tell you, if we got a surface wind coming in or a boundary wind that sets up from the southeast, I think it's going to warm up a little faster than what models are showing. Either way, we're talking about a quick burst at the start that goes to rain anyhow. So this is not going to be any particular big deal. And then by mid-morning Sunday, it's just about over with. It'll continue into early afternoon into New England before it starts to pull out later in the afternoon and tomorrow night, Sunday night. But weather conditions, at least for my area, from southwestern New England westward into eastern Pennsylvania, southern Pennsylvania down into Maryland, should see improving weather conditions later Sunday morning and into Sunday afternoon as that low runs up to the lakes. Let's back up to Saturday for a moment, because your severe weather is going to be setting up in that risk area. The GFS has been the most bullish with the idea of the severe weather outbreak. But one of the things that's a little different this time around from earlier this week, it's a little less deep with the low. It's a deep enough low to trigger off a widespread event, severe weather event here across the south. But it wasn't quite as extreme as it was a couple of days ago. So it'll be interesting to see how this all turns out from the standpoint of severe thunderstorms. But when we set the table, looking at the profile of the temperatures, you get the idea here where you're pushing 70s and even low 80s along in the Gulf Coast and 60s all the way up north of St. Louis. You are developing a pretty ripe warm sector here for the possibility of severe weather. And then on Sunday, that area shifts to the Carolinas, and we've got temperatures reaching up into the 80s, almost into what looks like down almost to about Wilmington, where not too far from Wilmington just 2 days ago it snowed. So it shows you the big temperature changes that are going on here. Remember, a large portion of this area dealing with hard freezes the last couple of nights, and now they're going to see their temperatures jump well up into the 70s and even into the low 80s. So that's going to set up the severe weather event for Sunday in the southeastern part of the United States and extending down into northern Florida. Now, next week, here we've got another low coming out of the west, and this one's going to go, as I said earlier, it's going to go pretty far to the left, tracking right along the North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota border here. It's not often you see lows take tracks like this, but you've got an upper air setup where the ridge in the east that's going to be building next week is going to be rather strong. Look at this here. Very, very strong ridge flying up the east coast from Florida all the way into southeastern Canada. This is going to force the trough out in the west, pretty far to the west, and lift the storm up way to the left. Watch that upper low. Let me back this up. So you got this upper low that drops down over the weekend, down through California and over the Baja Peninsula, and then it lifts up northward into the Dakotas. That's a pretty far left track with regards to the surface weather system. And here in the east, you've got this big ridge in the east that builds. That is going to be nice from the standpoint of producing some decent weather. However, the flow is going to be a bit, let's call it onshore-ish. So it actually is going to still be rather chilly in the northeast down into the mid-Atlantic states with a wind coming in from off the water. It also at least will keep things relatively dry. The shot of colder air coming in Monday behind the storm system from Sunday is not particularly cold. So we're just going to get whatever we get with that. But at least we'll have, I think, possibly 3 days of sunshine. As long as the onshore flow doesn't start sending in low clouds on Wednesday, I think we'll be okay through Wednesday. And then here comes the storm system for Thursday. There's your low going up near International Falls, Minnesota. Big occluded front that extends from there across the northern lakes and then right down through western New York, western Pennsylvania, through the Ohio Valley. Could be a severe weather outbreak here if the GFS is right, kind of showing it pretty impressive that far ahead on the 168 hour with the deep trough like this. I wouldn't be at all surprised that another low is going to come out of there and rush up to the northeast. So next week on the whole, at the very least, looks much more typical of March rather than what we've seen this week with this very, very cold air mass that came down and the very, very cold weather pattern that has set up overall. Now, folks, just give me 1 second here. I'm having some nasal issues, okay? So give me 1 second. I will be right back, so don't leave me, okay? I just want to get a tissue. I apologize for that. It gets rather stuffy in here sometimes in the room that I do these live streams in. I don't get a whole lot of fresh air into this room, and it makes breathing a whole lot of fun. Okay, so I just realized after all of this. Oh no, I got it right. I'm sorry. Just was double checking in terms of what you had on the screen. All right, so let's run through this upper air here. So we got this ridge in the east. You see it here, very strong. Trough in the west. Now, what's going to happen is, as we go through next week, that trough in the west is going to break down, and it's going to shift to the east, and the ridge in the west is going to come back. Watch over on the left side north of Hawaii. Okay, you're going to get a very deep trough and cutoff that low that forms near the Aleutians and drops a trough southward right along the longitude of Hawaii. So when you've got a deep trough out there down to along or just east of 160 degrees west, that actually helps to force a ridge up the west coast, which is what's happening here. In fact, now we're deep into the long range. We're at March 20th, 21st. So we're talking about the arrival of the astronomical arrival of spring. Right at this time, we could be going into a deep trough into the eastern part of the United States. I think if this happens, this would be a temporary situation. There's no blocking in the atmosphere. When we look at the teleconnections, the Pacific North America Index, or the PNA, which measures the extent of ridge in the west, trough in the east, actually goes off the wall positive. So this would indicate a very strong signal of the PNA index going very strongly positive. But we also have a positive North Atlantic Oscillation Index, and that means there's no blocking. So whatever's going on, things are going to be moving right along from west to east. The East Pacific Oscillation, which is now about to turn positive tomorrow and go rather strongly positive early next week, comes back down to the neutral line and goes negative a week from next Friday, and then kind of stays neutral after that. So, look, it's spring. Expect pattern volatility. You will have these interruptions, and when you have that pattern volatility, we talked about this last night, that there could very well be another, let's call it a short window of opportunity for something to happen snow-wise in the east. But I would be very careful with that idea, because without any blocking, it would seem to me that you would need to have everything perfect. I mean, I mentioned the phrase of all your ducks being in a row. You better have all your ducks in a row, because not having the blocking this time of year, you need to have every element working in your favor for a significant winter event as you get into the latter part of March and the beginning of April. Doesn't mean it can't happen. It might happen. It might happen more for the interior than anything else. We'll see. But the bottom line is that you really do need to have your upper air set up almost perfectly to pull a late winter storm off. And without having the blocking there, I think it's going to make it even more difficult. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens. We'll have to wait and see if all of that even verifies, which we don't even know. I bring it up because of the fact that the snow lovers are trying to grab on to maybe one last chance for something to happen. And that positive Pacific North America Index is certainly something that is, let's say, worth grabbing onto, but it is not a guarantee that you're going to wind up with a perfect pattern in order to create some kind of last late month winter weather event here in the northeastern part of the U.S. At least as far as the coastal Northeast is concerned. It wouldn't shock me at all if we wind up with something that impacts the inland areas, because that certainly could happen into early April no matter what. But it's getting tough now. It's getting tough on the coast. You got to have a perfect setup. Okay, so here's everybody on board tonight. I didn't let my app folks know that I was on tonight, so I'm going to have to do that after we're done. And I'm going to tell you folks, I'm going to wrap up the live stream a bit early, because I'm having just a little bit of difficulty handling this stuffy room in here. So a big hello to everybody, and it's nice to see any of you that are here that are new to the board. Welcome. Growing up with Daphne, my German Shepherd puppy. Michelle Henderson. Okay, you're talking to Michelle Henderson, but I think you're new on the board. I saw a comment from you last night, so welcome. And I just want to make it G-Butt Tressful. New on the board also. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much for being here. There you go. Michelle Henderson, I think you're new as well on the board. So nice to see you on. And thanks. Make sure all you guys, I guess you've hit the subscriber button so that you're on the chat board, which is really good. I really appreciate that. All right, folks. I'm like I said, I'm going to wrap it up a little early because I'm having a little bit of difficulty breathing in this room. So check out latest website posts on meteorologistjoechaffee.com. And we'll try and see if we'll do a Joe and Joe weather show. We haven't done it the last couple of nights, but we'll probably try and do one tonight on my Facebook page, Meteorologist Joe Chaffee, at 9:15. We'll maybe it's a combination of allergies and the lack of air that sometimes, when they got vents that they turn on and off, it can be a bit problematic. Let me just also, for those of you who haven't done it yet, here is my link to my free weather app, so you can download that from Google Play or from the App Store. Works for all mobile devices, and it's absolutely free. And I think I'll leave it at that tonight. If those of you who want to do support this channel, you can do that by joining my platform on Patreon. It's just $2 a month, and you can find the link to that on the descriptor to this live stream, or if you're watching it on a replay, on the descriptor to this video. Have a good night, everybody. Hopefully we'll see you later.